Welcome to the Tech Today podcast. It's your host, John Maeda. In the show notes, I'm going to link to the press conference that the New England Patriots had this afternoon, specifically the session whereby Patriots owner Robert Kraft held maybe a 10-minute Q&A session with media. And for those of you that are corp dev / M&A execs, I would encourage you to watch that Q&A session because Robert Kraft handled the split with now former coach Bill Belichick with class. And there's obviously self-interest in doing so. If you want to attract the very best coaches to come in and backfill for Bill Belichick, you want to treat Belichick, who many consider to be the greatest coach in NFL history, you want to treat him with class because future Patriots coaches are watching how you treat Belichick. So they're saying to themselves, geez, if Kraft and Belichick are going to split, and the Patriots, let's say, if they had traded Belichick to another team, and in return receive some sort of compensation, whether it be picks, players, a little bit of both, other coaches may say, geez, I don't know that I'm ever going to rack up the wins and the championships that Belichick did. And upon my exit, how am I going to be treated? So there was an incentive for the Kraft family to treat Belichick well, to handle today's press conference with class. That incentive is what I just described, of course, wanting to attract top talent to the organization. But it's a good lesson, as I said, for M&A execs. So if you think about, for example, two examples come to mind. One would be if you get into due diligence with a target company and you end up not executing the deal. And let's say you work for a large strategic acquirer. Let's say you do a few billion in revenue, and the company you're looking at is small by comparison, maybe a couple hundred million in revenue, and you don't do the deal. Well, it's great. It's a great idea if you treat that target company with respect, even if the due diligence process was hell, because they'll talk about that process to others, friends, maybe companies that they have commercial relationships with. And, offline they get together and they talk. So word gets around. And so if a target company that you don't end up doing a deal with has good things to say about you, that's going to help you on the next deal with another target company. So you want to build a reputation for being somebody that's easy to do business with, whether you get a deal done or you don't. But if you handle guys with respect, that will pay dividends on future deals. So that's sort of a breakup that I just described, whereby, as I said, you're doing due diligence and you decide not to do the deal after some number of weeks or some number of months. The other example that comes to mind immediately would be, let's say you do execute a deal, you acquire a target company, whether it's a company led by an entrepreneur or a company led by a hired management team, doesn't really matter. But let's say you do the deal, you close the acquisition. And let's say after a 3-year period, the founder of the acquired company, founder/CEO, the CFO leave the company. They execute their earnout. Maybe they maxed out the earnout, maybe they didn't, doesn't really matter. But after the earnout, they walk as per the deal that was structured at the time of the acquisition. Well, you want to treat them well, even if they don't max out the earnout. Let's say they don't make all of their revenue bogeys and their EBITDA bogeys. And let's say their performance is a C. I'm talking about the acquired company management team. You still want to treat them with respect. Number one, they're people, even if they're underperforming. And insofar as they are members of the company, treat them with respect. And then on the way out, treat them with respect for the same reason. They too will talk, presumably to executives who are operating other target companies on your M&A landscape. And so it helps if people who leave your firm, and I'm talking again of the target company executives, if they have good things to say about, hey, during my time there, sometimes we hit it out of the park, sometimes we missed the number, but great team to work with, good folks, they're building something real. They're building real value, had a lot of fun there, and on the way out, they just had nothing but nice things to say. These guys were a pleasure to work with. If you have an opportunity to do a deal with these guys, if they come knocking and they say they're interested in your company, take the call. Meet them for lunch, meet them for dinner, but get to know those guys. They're good folks. So there's a beyond just treating people with respect, there's a shareholder value, if you will, reason for treating people with respect, because it could pay dividends on the business end down the road. So again, I will point to the interview with Robert Kraft. It's short. Even if you don't watch the whole thing, the whole 10 minutes, you get a flavor for it pretty quickly. We published an article today about the streaming companies. What kind of spurred me to write that article is that, I think it was on Monday or Tuesday, it was announced that Tom Cruise he's got a new production deal with Warner Brothers Discovery, ticker WBD. John Malone of Liberty Media controls that company. David Zaslav is the CEO. Tom Cruise has spent most of his career with Paramount, and he's done some work with Warner Brothers, but Paramount and Warner Brothers are talking about a deal. WBD would be the acquirer of Paramount Global. And with Cruise signing with WBD, it's just kind of, reading the tea leaves. It just implies that WBD will be the acquirer. They're going to be the surviving entity. And again, that was reported maybe for the first time a month or so ago, several weeks ago. Not the Cruise deal, but the fact that Warner Brothers and Paramount have been talking. That's public knowledge. And John Malone and David Zaslav have said so themselves, particularly if the economy continues to soften. They want to use free cash flow and presumably a bit of debt, maybe some equity, to pick up smaller companies in the content space and use the downturn as an opportunity to acquire quality companies at a good value. John Malone did a fair amount of that back in the 2008 downturn. I believe that's when he acquired Sirius, and Mel Karmazin was the CEO of Sirius at that time. So, the streaming business, it's a difficult business when you think about it. The upfront costs are quite high. The production cost, scouting locations, hiring a cast, hiring a crew, shooting the movie, marketing the movie. And then on the back end, as you know, with streaming services, the revenue comes in, over time. And it doesn't come in directly per se tied to a given movie or television series. It comes in the form of new subscribers to the platform. So it's sort of an indirect relationship with respect to revenues and content that's produced for these streaming platforms. So it takes a while to break even. And what these smaller companies are finding, and by smaller companies, I mean Paramount, I mean Warner Brothers, even Disney to a degree, right? It takes some time to get these streaming platforms profitable. It takes a while to get to steady state. And so, Warner Brothers has mitigated some of that risk. They've struck some deals with larger platform companies like Amazon, whereby Amazon hosts Warner Brothers content on their platform. There's some sort of a revenue share, and Amazon helps extend Warner Brothers' reach. So I think you'll see more of those type of commercial agreements where there's the smaller content players partner with. Amazon seems to be the one that's most commercially creative, but Amazon, Google under the new CEO, the new YouTube CEO is becoming more aggressive on the content front. They signed the NFL ticket deal. Maybe they signed that back in July, and that service started to roll out this past August, $14 billion deal. So YouTube's presumably one that would be interested in partnering. Apple, certainly large enough. Not sure how interested they would be to host third-party content. I think Warner Brothers, frankly, would be an obvious acquisition candidate for Apple. I think the two brands align well. I think Disney, from a brand perspective, particularly the animation content, aligns very well with Apple's brand. So you'll see those type of rev share partnerships, but then for sure you're going to see consolidation. And I think the reason why I haven't seen more to date is because Joe Biden's FTC under Lena Khan she's just got a beef with large tech. Right? She doesn't want to see any M&A deals. And frankly, I don't get it. I can't think of one deal that she's pushed back on that I've agreed with her as far as technology M&A goes. So I think you'll definitely see consolidation, for example, Warner Brothers and Paramount. And I think over time, Apple, Google with YouTube, Amazon will continue to strike deals. Amazon, of course, acquired MGM not too long ago. Microsoft's another one. I think that's going to be interesting. They're digesting the Activision deal. That was a huge deal. It was at $68 billion. So I think you'll see them, Microsoft, potentially acquire content on the sort of the traditional content side. Disney could be interesting for Microsoft down the road as well, because when you think about it, Disney's IP translates well to video games. When you think about Star Wars and the Marvel universe, that could be really interesting. And add grist to the mill, if you will, for Microsoft's Xbox platform. So I think this could be the year where maybe you do see a Warner Brothers Paramount type deal. I don't know if the FTC will push back hard on a deal like that. But I definitely don't expect to see like an Amazon go pick off a Warner Brothers. I don't see that happening. Maybe you see Warner Brothers pick off Endeavor, ticker EDR. Ari Emanuel's Endeavor acquired WWE earlier this year, folded it into a new co called TKO Group along with the UFC. So it's sort of a combination of a live events business with original content. And Warner Brothers kicked the tires on WWE, found that deal to be a bit rich. They passed on it, but maybe they acquire EDR, and they could keep the owned properties, the content properties, and spin off or sell altogether the agency business. So small to mid-sized deals, yeah, I guess they'd probably get through FTC approval. So I could see some of those happening this year, particularly if the interest rates stay high. The economic growth is muted to flat to slightly negative. The tougher things get, I think we'll see more of those smaller deals. A24. They announced a deal maybe 8 weeks ago with Warner Brothers, if I'm not mistaken. But A24, the independent studio, you could see them getting gobbled up for sure, and they wouldn't receive pushback on that type of a deal this year. And then I think if we have a new administration in 2025, a Republican administration with a more deal-friendly FTC, that's when you could see the big fish. You could see potentially an Apple acquire Disney, that type of deal. will go through. Disney's had the for sale sign up for quite a while. Probably didn't get the number they were looking for. A lot of moving parts there, particularly with ESPN as it loses its affiliate revenue, as Bob Iger looks to make ESPN strictly a streaming network by 2025. So I think once ESPN gets sorted out, then you'd be more likely to see a Disney deal. And I've written about that in the past. And depending on the potential acquirer, you'd likely see the content business get consumed and the parks business spun out as a separately traded public entity or sold off to private equity. But Disney's content business, I think, is fantastic. They're just wanting on the execution side. So that's all for now. See you next time.